Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Again, please, in the first 5 minutes or so here, please add your company name, your name, your school, your class or grade, your company name, your product or service. So take the first 5 minutes to do that, please.
Toms, we are going to say hello to the people. Yeah?
Please.
Good. Hi, guys. Hope you are doing very well. Everyone there? I see.
Hi,
we see Luisa. Yeah. Okay. Remember about the cameras if you have your cameras. Yeah. We see Maris, as always. Hey, Maris.
Hey, others.
We've seen some of our colleagues. We see Ines. Good to see you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. So today we will have Tom that is gonna talk on the writing skills for your business reports. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that you will have to present if you go to the European finals. But even if you don't go to the European finals, you have to also submit something like along those lines for the national finals. And besides that, in the future, you will write a lot of reports in your life. So the tips you will receive from Tom's are going to be fundamental for that. Yeah.
Yes. And then next week, we have 3 lectures planned. So Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, because Friday is off. It's already Easter time. And then Monday, we will have people again. And then Wednesday and Thursday is going to be on branding and communication.
So next week is all about selling, and marketing and selling and branding. So that's going to be the week where you are going to work on your brands. Okay.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah. Remember, Paula will be leading a couple of those.
Yeah.
And we will have guest speakers. So remember about your slides. So we see you very active in a Slack. So we are taking.
Yeah. Okay.
Good.
Enjoy.
Good luck. Enjoy.
Okay, so I'm still waiting for everybody to add the information that I asked you to add. Name, school, class grade, company name, product or service. Please add it to the comments. Louisa, I see nothing. Okay, I'm getting them slowly. Okay, so as they come up, I will be looking at those. So if I look off to the side, that's what I'm doing. My name is Tom Schmit. I, as I said in Slack, have been here for a while now. And my primary work is in writing and communication. I work for Central Latvia largely, and my work every day is writing. In fact, I had to make sure I closed a bunch of documents just to make sure that I'm not sharing too much when I share my screen. My major thing here, and I'm glad that Paula and Claudia are left, because my big thing is basically follow the rules. When you're writing a document, when you're making a presentation, when you are providing information, the biggest thing is not so much around the English or the language that you use, but to make sure that you're providing the information and using the structure that you're asked to use. All too often, what I see in my work with students in the past and even with companies now is that people try to be too creative. And this is a place where, with reports especially, and with presentations for investors especially, you want to make sure that you're following the rules, that you're doing what they ask you to do. If you try and sort of, as we say in American English, draw outside of the lines, you're probably making a mistake, because that will immediately get disregarded. And also people will wonder if you actually understood what was asked of you. So my task here is to kind of remind you mostly about what the rules are. And then from the experience that I've had in working with teams here is to make sure that, you know, you can follow those rules. The group chat is available right now. And of course, Valmīras Technikums, that's a good school. So actually, just for the record, I'm sitting here in Viesite, which is sort of between Jēkabpils and Nereta. And so it's good to see people from relatively close by in Daugavpils. Valmiera, we had some people from Valmiera at a project I was just working on. So let's get started. I am going to share my screen, and in my screen I'm going to pop up the presentation that I put into Slack. And there it is, business report writing. And I'm going to go through that pretty quickly, I think. Spend half my life on video conferences these days. Okay. If you have questions as we go along or as I go along, please make sure that you ask those questions. Okay. So business report writing, my emphasis is on the Junior Achievement Report form for the European championships or finals. And that's my information. Feel free to ask questions of me on email, or if it's something that would require something more, you can find me on Skype pretty often, but if you really do need it, it's best to schedule a time with me, so send me an email or ask through Skype. So I'm going to review the report format. I'm going to talk a little bit about working with documents, some pragmatic stuff that probably you already know, but just in case you don't. And then what you need in order to start, and then some do's and don'ts. First of all, like I said at the very beginning, follow the format. Always follow the format. It's important because they ask these questions of you because, I mean, to be really practical about it, they are going to be evaluating you, which is a fancy word for grading. So they're going to be evaluating you against a set of criteria, and the criteria, the rules are really, really clear. And if you walk outside of the rules, then people are going to say, what do I do with that? And if they don't know, then you're likely to lose points, or you're likely to lose kind of parts of your grade, and nobody wants to do that. Now, to go a little bit outside of it, if you're working with an investor and you start to provide them with information that they didn't ask for, you know, either you have an extremely good reason for that, or the investor is going to start to say, number one, maybe they didn't understand, maybe you don't understand. And number two is that, you know, there are reasons why people don't ask for certain things, and you should respect that. And it ends up being really, really important for evaluation, and that's evaluation for a grade, or for a competition, or for investors. So the first thing you do is you create a table of contents. We'll come around to that in a moment, but the table of contents for the junior achievement thing, and again, I uploaded materials to Slack about this already, and that includes the table of contents that's expected of you, plus the evaluation criteria. It maybe changes a little tiny bit from year to year, but not that much. The first thing is an executive summary. Second thing is company overview. Third is your product. Fourth is operations. Fifth is production capacity. Then management. Management is something you need to look around a little bit to understand, and that will get to another part of what I'm talking about. Then marketing, how you're selling, where you see your future potential, and then your summary financials. I want to go back to the beginning. So executive summary. So your executive summary is the last thing you do. And why is it last? Well, because you don't know what you're summarizing until you've made the long version of it. The long version of it is what you're going to end up putting into shorter stuff. Your company overview, by the time you come around to doing this, you should have a pretty good sense of what your company overview is. Your product is just 2 or 3 very short lines about what it is. Operations. If you're actually making a product, then you have a very strong operations section, because if you're making the product, then you should be able to bring in all the information that you've generated about how you do things, how you make that product. Production capacity flows directly from operations. The management section is the section where you're talking about how you and your colleagues, your team members, actually manage the operations that you're doing. So operations, what it is you do, production capacity, how much you do, how much you make, and then finally management about how you and your colleagues agree to divide up tasks around operations. And then comes marketing. Right? So marketing is all your sales stuff. It's almost just a list of the things that you've been doing to sell your product. And then future potential, what if this product is something that could be sold further on? Because I think about things like a few years ago, we had the Latvian champion was a company called Simple Plus, and their future potential section was actually very optimistic, and they've lived up to that, because Christians, who created the company, has kept that company alive through at least 3 or 4 years now. And then summary financials, we'll come back to that. This is something that many people feel like what they have is too simple, but that's what a summary is. It's a simple list of your financials. How do you prepare to do this? Well, number one, you make the document. And so you open up a Word document. You give it a really good descriptive file name. By descriptive, I mean the name of the company. It says company report, and then it has the date that you're starting on. And as you go through and create drafts of that, then you can use that file name to create new drafts so that you, by date, so that you can track where you've been with that document, and then you can go back to things if you feel like you want to change it. Okay. Then you make the document with headings, and I will show a little bit of this. Heading 1 for sections, so each section. And then heading 2 for breaks within sections. So each of those major headings that I showed you that are in the requirements, those are heading 1 sections. And then heading 2 are for breaks within sections. For example, in the marketing section, you could have about direct sales online, for example. That would be 1 section. And then a section 2 might be exhibitions that you sell at. And then I always suggest is that between the different, for your first draft, for your first version of this, put page breaks between all the heading 1 sections, so that it's all clean and clear for you as you work on it. Another important thing is I've been doing this for a while now. It is important that people try sometimes to take each one of these sections and make a separate document for it and then merge that. That's really difficult to do well. So, it's best you start with a single document. Then, after you've created the document, then divide the work into sections for your team members. And usually you do it by specialty or work area. So if you have one person who's responsible for your production, then that person takes the operations and maybe the management section. Marketing, obviously your marketing person, your CEO or whoever's in charge could be the person who does the executive summary at the end of it, and or the management section. If you have a person who's responsible for accounting, then that person could be the one who's taking over the summary financials. Then you gather information that's needed for the text. So I'm gonna go back to the main screen here. I'm gonna stop sharing for a moment, and I'm gonna ask you, so please just for 3 minutes, think about what it is that you would need to fill in the operations section. What are the pieces of information that you would like to have in your hand when you fill in the operations section? So take 3 minutes and just write like 3 pieces of information in the group chat that you would need to fill in the operations section, just based on what I've said. Okay? So 3 minutes. It's now 2:14, so until 2:17. Just 3 pieces of information. Okay, 1 minute. Okay, I chose to ask about operations because when I was in business school, operations management was one of the classes that I enjoyed the most and actually got a pretty decent grade in. I don't see that anybody's posted anything, put anything in the group chat. Ah, okay, good, thank you. Kristaps, do I know you, Kristaps? It's from someplace. Just curious. Because Kristaps Melberdis, and I knew somebody who went to the third gymnasium from that, with that surname. Anyway, how the production process is happening? Well, yeah, that's the general flow. So you might need a flow chart. Okay. Distribution and operations. Okay. Sales and marketing process, no, not so much, because sales and marketing is a separate section, our separate section. The operations is a separate thing, and you would want to keep that information separate. Okay, but that was a good start. So from operations, from my little perspective, and I'll write this in the chat so that you can save it if you like, and I'll add it. I'll create a document after we finish. So one thing is your workflow. Second thing is a list of parts needed to make what you do. I saw, for example, that we have somebody making vegan chocolate, vegan white chocolate. I mean, obviously, you're going to need a list of ingredients. And so that goes into operations. You need a workflow, you need a list of parts that are made, and then you also need a list of responsibilities. Oops, I don't seem to be typing to the general thing. Okay. I don't know why I'm typing only to one person now. Is anybody, could you shake your head yes or no if you're seeing this in the general chat? No, okay. Then let me try that again, because somehow my group, okay, there we go. Oops. Let me add it again. So workflow. So what in what order are tasks to be done? List of parts, ingredients. This is not necessarily in the order that you would put them in operations. And then responsibilities. Now, if you outsource your production, then of course basically what you're going to do is say we outsource our production. So outsourcing meaning you have somebody else do it for you. In the case of Simple Plus, for example, they had been through 2 different companies, one in Riga, and they were looking for a Polish outsourcer to make their bags. This was 4 years ago, 4 or 5. Okay, good. No. Okay, this, I see what Louise wrote, and thank you. That's good stuff. But what the main goal of the company is, no. We're talking about operations specifically. So in the operations section of this, you're not going to talk about the goal of your company. That belongs in a different section, like a general description of the company. Marketing activities, no. How the company sells, that's marketing. Thank you. Operations is a really different thing. Operations is like this core issue of how your company makes a product or the service that you sell. Where I work, I'm responsible to our operations director, and Nastia is not interested in, she's interested in sales, we all are, but she's interested in how we do the work we're doing, and then how it like very practically is put where it is. For example, I do writing, I have to put things onto our internal portal, and she's interested in how many articles I wrote, where they are, what the links are, etc. It's very, very practical stuff. Good. How the work is divided. Thank you, Katrina. Yeah, exactly so. And then how the product is made. That's a really big thing, isn't it, right? How the product is made. That's the essence of operations. Thank you. This was really, really helpful for me to know where you are in this stuff. Okay. Are there any other questions right now for me? We're almost to the halfway point. If there are, please just put them in the everyone chat. I'll give it 1 minute. Okay, I am going to go back to sharing. Back to my presentation. Where is it? Where is my screen? There it is. Okay. And so you have all the stuff you need in order to make this document. That means you've created a document, you put it into portions. And the reason that I ask you, and I always suggest that people put it into portions first, is that this allows you to take really, really good advantage of what Microsoft Word for Windows can do, which is it helps you to do but things that used to be much more difficult. For example, creating a table of contents, and then also a table of graphics and stuff like this, which is really, it can be a pain in the neck. Ultimately, if you're the team that wins goes to the European Championship, you will end up working with the designer, but even the designer will be happy if it's easy to work and go through your document. Okay, so you make all the graphics that you expect to need and have them in separate files. Okay, if you're working with a designer, especially at the end, this comes from a long experience, is that make sure that all of your graphics, whether they're tables that you're going to use, pictures, or whatever, make sure that you have them as separate files. So don't just stick them into the Word document, because for a designer, it can be very difficult to work with something that's just in a Word file. So separate files, please. And then look for any information that you're missing. And at this stage, when you're just getting ready to write stuff, it's much better to have more stuff than you need than to have not enough stuff, not enough information, because my primary work is editing what other people write, and it's much easier. It's much easier to subtract than it is to add to somebody's writing. Then you're right. Now, the first portion of this document is executive summary, but like I said at the beginning, that's the last thing you write, because you don't know what you're summarizing until you've written the sections. Okay? And then I suggest this for all kinds of reports, and this is true of like ZPD or thesis writing, etc. But write an introduction for each section. And it's very simple stuff. This section will contain. So for example, in the operations section, which again, my favorite, you write something like, this section will contain information about how we produce our product and how we distribute our product, for example. And yeah, a lot of reports are gonna have exactly the same kind of language in it, but it's okay, because what this does is it allows the reader, the person who's giving you an evaluation, to say, oh yeah, this is a section that's important to me, I'll spend some time here. Then you write the main text, and then you write for each section a conclusion or a summary. And it can be very simple. If you think about what I said about operations, and at the very end of it, you say, this section contained information about how we produce our product and how we distribute our product. It's a cap at the beginning and a cap at the end. And then you write the executive summary. And your executive summary mentions in very short words contents from each section. And it's important that you have contents from each section, because remember that there will always be people who will only read the executive summary. And if you're at these European finals, people are listening to your presentation. It's quite likely that at the presentation section, they're handed your report, and then they just look at the executive summary. So your executive summary is important, but again, it's important to write it last. Then after you've done all the writing, then you add the graphics. And in the Word for Windows, in Microsoft Word for Windows, there's a captioning tool. If you don't know how to use it, there's videos available on YouTube, I think, that do this. And if you can't find something, just send me a message and I'll be happy to make a couple of screenshots. And then for the record, it doesn't matter if the caption is above the picture or below it. It just matters that it's there. And make sure too that your label, your caption, has descriptive names. And by descriptive, I don't mean, sometimes I've seen reports that say, like, there's a picture of somebody's product and it says, our product. Says very little, right? So a better description would be simple plus, the luggage that we create, or something like this, so that the person who's looking at it, they're not questioning what it is exactly. So descriptive is better, and also descriptive is very good for file names. Now, at the very end of it, you use the TOC as table of contents, and you use that table of contents function to make the table of contents. Make sure that, and this is where it is. This is the English version of Word. I'm sorry, I don't have the Latvian on my work computer. So when you go to the references tab here, off on the far left is a function called table of contents. And you click on that, and then it comes up with automatic tables. And you choose automatic table 1, and you can get rid of heading 2 and heading 3 contents. And then what happens is it generates a table of contents that has the names of your headings. So if your heading 1 is executive summary, it's going to say, first is executive summary. Then it comes up with page numbers. And then after you're finished and you get rid of all of the page breaks, then you can resave the table of contents. Okay. My major writing suggestions are always this. Give yourself time to do this well. Don't make this the last thing that you do. Don't make it the last thing you think about. Make it one of the first things. Next, get a second or third opinion. For the European Championships or the European Finals, we always do several sessions about the report. It's a big part of the evaluation. Like I said at the beginning, don't try and be funny. This is not to try and tying time to work in little jokes or like smart things. Okay, be smart, but not too smart. And then follow the guidelines. I can't say that often enough. Follow the guidelines. The guidelines are what you're being evaluated for and with. And it's important that you make sure that you're in those rules in order to assure that you get the evaluation that you deserve. A couple of other things. When I say get a second or third opinion, what I mean is get some editing help. And who could be your editing help? Well, it could be your economics teacher, whoever's helping you with the junior achievement work. It could be your English teacher. It could be if you have a parent who is involved in business, then get that second or third opinion from that person. And then what I suggest people do is they take the criteria that junior achievement asks of you, and I put those on Slack, and then say, does this go to the second or third opinion person and say, does this meet the requirement? And that person can take the criteria and put it sort of side by side with what you wrote and say yes or no. Now, unshare, I hope. Stop share. Okay, so now we're at 2:30. What I'd like to do is I'm going to make some general observations, and then I will also ask you a few questions as we go along, and hopefully you will take a moment and answer those questions. So a couple of other observations that come from the work that I've done with this is people start this a little bit too late. It's better to, like I said before, is start early and be sure that you have all the information that you need. Okay? Also, and this is true of junior achievement, it's also true of every other kind of document you're writing. I'm going to write this in the everyone is search. Search for examples. So when I started to think about this a couple of days ago, and I was looking for information like that I could use to talk to you about this, I searched junior achievement reports. And guess what? There's a lot of them available for people to look at. So different schools that take this junior achievement very seriously in Latvia and in other countries put examples online. And those examples can be very helpful for you in understanding what you can do. And you now have, the Slack. And Linda could probably say how long this will live, but Slack is a good place. If you find a really good resource, share that resource so that other people can make use of it. And I do this too for everything I do. About 5 years ago, I started being asked to write what are called annual reports. And annual reports for corporations, of course, in addition to the concept bilance, yeah. So in Latvia, we provide this balance to the corporate registry, but a lot of companies also make annual reports, which go to their investors and to other outsiders. And my first step was not to start to write the thing for the corporation I was working for, but to look for examples. So look for examples. These things can be very, very useful in deciding how you're going to write. Okay. What else? First of all, another thing is that when you start writing, write simply, write short sentence. My friends, when you were in your early days of your English education, you were probably taught simple present, right? And then simple present and simple past and present continuous make up 60+% of all English. Now, we know that you want to use sophisticated language. The best way to use sophisticated language is to start with simple, short sentences, and then see if you can add those sentences together to create something more sophisticated. As an editor, it's much more difficult to try and understand what somebody's trying to say if they write a long, complex sentence. So start simple and then build those things together to create more complex things, rather than try to go the other direction. Another thing is use breaks. By breaks, I mean headings. And those can be either like heading 2 or bold headings. I'm going to just give me a moment here and I'll show you what I'm talking about. In a moment, I will share a screen. I'm going to pull up a story that I wrote for our Accenture portal, or changed. And I'll share it with you and I'll show you what I mean. Just take a moment. And please, as we're going through this, and especially as I'm going between aspects of this, please ask questions in the chat if you have them. I'm ready to answer. Okay. Closer. There we go. Okay. That's not what I want. Even when you work with something every day, sometimes it can be difficult to find what you want. Okay, so I'm going to share this with you. Okay, so one of a very important clients, the company I work for, is this beer company, Carlsberg. And we did some important work for them. And it was part of my job to write a story about this. And what they provided to me as text was an unbroken text. What I did is I took the text, and of course I edited it. I edited this text, and then I put some bold breaks in between it so that somebody who's reading it can find their way through the text. And also it gives the reader a break. And you can see at the very end of it, we put a graphic and then a highlight. So you can use these things. These are the ways that you can use the tools that Microsoft Word has to break up the text a little bit and still be following the rules and using the criteria that they allow. Okay, let's stop. Sure. Okay, did everybody see that? If you saw that, please shake your head yes. Cool. Thank you, Katrina. Okay, no questions yet. Okay. And then we're going to go on to the other thing that I was going to ask you to do, which, okay, so I went through all this material about what goes into this report, and I hope that you will take the time and look at the materials that I put on Slack about what is being evaluated. Now, we talked about what might go into an operations section, marketing. Okay, 4 minutes and 23 seconds, and what I'd like you to do is put just a list of what you think could go into the marketing section or your company report. So just a list, quick list of things that you think should go or could go into your marketing section. And you have until 2:43. That's 2 short rehards. Okay, 2 minutes. Hey, Lisa, what about you? Ines, I see you hiding down there. You should write something. Okay, 1 minute. Okay, as my, cool. As my boss in another place that where I work would say, this is really good stuff. Congratulations. You guys in general seem to have a really good handle on marketing, or at least an idea of what you could be putting in there. Let's go through this list and I'm going to make some comments. I will end up putting this into a Word document and making a table with what you wrote, some comments, and then maybe if I see anything that's missing, what I would add. Okay, so marketing activities, of course. Question is which marketing activities and the channels we use to reach our customers. Okay, that's definitely marketing. So the short addition to that would be channels, and then this would be something that would be really good as a graphic, because if you have channels if you use multiple channels, if you use online, you use face-to-face by exhibitions and stuff, then you could have a table with, down one side you would have the channel, and then on the next table you could have a set of expectations, and the third column could be results. Okay, so that's really good. So the channels, yeah, definitely, and it would be a good way. That would be a good thing to have, so that you could then add either a table or heading breaks that would break up your channels. Appearance, absolutely. Yeah, appearance is something that's ignored too often by marketers, but yeah, what your product looks like, and then what that has to do with your marketing and such. Types of promotion. Okay, I'm assuming that promotion goes along with channels. That's one thing. Another thing is that if you're talking about like having things like price promotions, etc., or selling two products together, that's definitely worth mentioning. I like this one from Carlos about how product price is created. Yeah, pricing is a very important part of marketing. And if you have a sentence or two that talks about how you came up with price, that shows sophistication. Okay, and the least sophisticated way of doing pricing is what they call cost plus. I hope nobody here does cost plus. I'll write that. So cost plus is where you just figure out how much it costs you to make something, and then you add a percentage. That's a very unsophisticated pricing model. I hate the word model. The more sophisticated pricing is to say, we looked at the market, we see that other people are selling at this kind of a price, and then we decided that, based on that information, that we would sell with this kind of price. Or if you're selling a service, for example, which is a company that I work for, we sell services. We not only understand the market, but we understand the value that we're providing and how valuable that is to our customers. So information that you have about your pricing model, if it's in your marketing section, can show sophistication, and it can end up with you having a better evaluation. Katrina, okay, good. Thank you for the feedback, Maris. Katrina, you were very fast. Congratulations. Situation practice, yeah, sure. In your marketing section, yeah, that's a really good observation from Anse. So if you have the situation in the market, so a little bit, but remember, these reports are only 10 pages long. I say only because to me, like that's like trying to put the entire Bible into 4 pages. It is really difficult to think about, which means that you have to be really careful that you're limiting your information to what's really important. But 2 or 3 sentences about what the market situation is can be really important. I assume that's what Danza meant by situation. You could, of course, you can talk about competition, but notice too, by the way, that the marketing section can have information about competition, but they're not really demanding it. So, be a little bit limited, but show sophistication by, talking about that aspect of it. 4 P's: price, place, promotion, product, and promotion. Sure. That can actually be, thank you, Ansa, that can be a very good way of structuring a marketing section. You could have 4 headings: price, talk about how you came to your price model; place, talk about why you choose to go to the places you do in order to sell something about your product. Although I know that this is the order that they always talk about it, but it might be better to have product, then price, then promotion, and then place. Do it in sort of an order that makes sense to a reader. And then advertising strategy. Okay, be careful because strategy is an interesting concept, because strategy tends to be what we call post hoc. Post hoc means you say, oh, we've been doing this, that must be our strategy. So, think about whether or not it's something that you came to at the beginning and you followed it and it worked, or it didn't work. Or if it's, something you came to later. Another thing is that, remember, and I didn't say this in the presentation, but remember that the people who are evaluating these reports, these kinds of reports, are also interested in what you learned. So if you go to strategy and say that, like, we thought we were going to use this kind of a marketing strategy, but damn it, it didn't work. And here's what we learned. That's really important. So in these reports, as opposed to like a good annual report, it's okay to admit if you were wrong, if it failed. In one report about a company where they were, that we used for junior achievement, where they looked for outsourced operations, outsourced production, they said, yeah, we looked at these and we made mistakes. And admitting mistakes in these reports is good because it shows learning. And that's what they're interested in learning. They're interested in understanding, did you learn? Good. Richard said something very important about how effective is a marketing activity. Sure. In your marketing section, you talk about the 4 Ps, you talk about strategy, etc. But then also, it's important to say how effective these marketing activities are. So if you go back to that idea that I brought up about having a table about marketing, in your table you could have you could have a channel, how you did it, and then how effective it was. So, and the tables are ways, as much as I love good text, tables are a way to escape writing a lot. So if you can like summarize it into a table, that's a really good thing too. How you're reaching your audience. Yeah, that's channels. What platforms you're going to use. Oh, okay. That's a little bit beyond. Yeah, that's a good point from Kristaps. Because Kristaps is what platforms you're going to use. So, for example, saying I'm going to sell online, that's very general statement, but saying I'm going to sell through Etsy or through eBay or whatever, that's the more specific, the better off you are. And then you can actually have in your table, we used Etsy, we had this number of sales with this much cost. So yeah, that's a really, really good point. Thank you, Kristaps. Seasonality. So point 5 for Kristaps was seasonality. It's what we call seasonality. Let me type it out. So seasonality says that we purchase different things in different times of the year. There was one team we worked with that had a piece of equipment where you could store your bike or your skis or whatever in a small flat and keep it out of the way. That can be a very seasonal product based on what's going on in the recreation market. So you might, like, in your marketing, you could say, okay, our product is primarily for people who are doing things in the summertime, so we're going to have most of our marketing activities in the spring. So that's really good information to have about seasonality. Okay, good. Then Christopher's jumping in here, creating a sales funnel. That's a very important idea. And if you can expand on that in the marketing section about how you do create a sales funnel. Sales funnel is about creating all the promotional activities and gathering names and all that kind of stuff that then leads to sales. So funnel it's a good thing to talk about if you've been doing it. Okay. Okay. This is really cool stuff. I will take all this stuff and I'll put it into a Word document, and I will make some reflections on it and add it to the Slack by tomorrow morning. I have a lot to do this afternoon. Okay. Good. You can't see, I hope, but I'm control C-ing and I'm putting it into a Word document. Okay, so good stuff. Okay, the last thing that I would like from you as we're wrapping up here is I will give you some last points. And as I'm giving you some last points in these last few minutes, I would like you to just write one other thing that you would like to know about report writing. Okay, so here's my wrap up. My wrap up is very, very simple. first of all, understand the rules. That is, understand what you're being evaluated on and by, and who's evaluating them, you. This is very similar to what I tell the people who are taking tests, which is think about what it is that the test giver wants to understand about you and about your company, about your product, your services, your whatever. Okay, that's important. So understanding, which means that you become more sophisticated and better about searching for examples that you can use that will make your reports better. Right? So that's really important stuff too. Next thing, become sophisticated users of Microsoft Word. There's lots of good videos and there's lots of good descriptions about how to do things in Word that will be very helpful to you. For example, headings, changing heading types, etc., and then creating tables of content and creating annexes. Those are really good skills to have, and they'll serve you well in making these reports, and then plus in general in writing. My final suggestion and comment is start simple and then build the complexity. So the simpler you start, the more sort of bricks you put in place, the better off you are, because then you can put cement between the bricks. Right? If you don't have the bricks, there's no place to make cement. Okay. Nobody wants to know anything more? Okay. So 4 minutes left. I think that's basically what I have to say. I will, in the Slack, add this Word document with some comments. I will add my favorite report writing resources. And those resources are specifics of reports, but also ways to improve the English that people use for reports. Okay. Again, I ask if you could please put in the group chat anything that it was missing that you would like to know that I could perhaps add to it, and ta service. That's basically what I have to say to you. The presentation is in the Slack already. I will add other materials to Slack, and I see Paola there. Paola, do you want to wrap it up there?
I mean, I think it was very informative. Hopefully you guys can follow all of this and really follow the rules, yeah. But no, from my side, I'm just, as always, reminding that we are waiting for your one slide with the summary of what you learned. We are tracking it. So yeah, do that. Otherwise, yeah.
Okay, Paolo, Claudio, thank you for the opportunity. And as much as there's distance in between, it was nice to meet all of you, and it's good to know there's so many people who are going to continue with the junior achievement work. And I hope that I meet at least a couple of you at when the world opens up again at exhibitions and things like that, and then eventually to work with whoever ends up being the people to go to the European championships. And I wish you all the best of luck, and very good luck with the rest of your school year, whether you end up back at school or doing it all by distance. And thanks, and have a good afternoon from Viasit.
Thank you, and see you guys next week then, Monday. 9
Bye.
p.m. Bye.